Your 10-2 Denver Broncos, who could clinch a playoff spot as soon as this weekend, are now getting some very weird news, and I need to know, how hard should we be smashing that panic button, or are you feeling good? We also get more news about the disrespect at your Broncos, who boast the longest home winning streak in the entire NFL, being underdogs to the Green Bay Packers. We're breaking all that down and more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben, and it helps me in the algorithm out a ton if you like the Broncos, if you would smash that like and subscribe button. So we knew all along that this defense was propelling us deep into the playoffs, and we know defense wins championships. It's what won us our last one. It is what is going to get us deep in the playoffs. And I need to just bring this up here, that last December, we went into the month of December just feeling incredible about our defense, and we didn't play bad in December, ended up clinching playoffs and making the playoffs because of how truly Bo Nix raised his level in the month of December. But here is a trend that we absolutely have to avoid. And there are some people on Twitter and on the interwebs who are predicting this same downfall that we saw last December, again this December, and they have some data that shows they think it's happening again. So I need to hear all your thoughts on that. But here's the deal that I don't need to remind you because you lived it and remember it. But last year during the regular season, your Denver Broncos were one of the best defenses, weeks 1 through 12, averaging over 309 yards allowed against them. And then on average allowed 16.83 points per game, which Bo Nix is going to do that in his sleep. He's going to be able to score 17 points in a game. So we were absolutely balled out of control and looked great. Then once the month of December hit, it was like, is Vance Joseph still calling plays? What is happening? The month of December was absolutely abysmal, as we had a 20% regression in defense, as our defense started allowing 370 yards per game, and then our average jumped up to 27.5 points per game. Now, I'm throwing out that last game because the Chiefs didn't play their starters. Obviously, we held them to a zero burger without their starters. That had a ton of people concerned, right? When you're allowing almost 10 points more, or actually more than 10 points scored against you per game, and now you're saying Bo Nix has to score 28 to beat a team in the playoffs, and then we saw that continue all the way when the Buffalo Bills just moved the ball at will and scored 31 points on us. So how do the Denver Broncos avoid that, and are there cracks that are showing that same exact thing might be happening now? A couple really interesting articles. This one's from Sports Illustrated, talking about how we're starting to see some cracks in this Broncos defense, and we just take a look at the fact that we held the Vegas Raiders and they only scored 17 points against us, but their average points per game is like 12, so they're scoring more than their points per game, and they've just been falling off a cliff. You saw the Chiefs, who are a great defense, held them to 0. They scored 16 on the Cowboys, 10 on the Browns, 14 on the Chargers, so they scored more than they have been scoring recently on us. And then the Washington Commanders, we held them. They scored 26 points on us, and it took them going for a 2-point conversion in overtime for us to beat them. The very next week, getting their starting quarterback back for some of that, you'd think they'd be even better than they were against us. And the Vikings held them to absolutely 0 points. And so that has a lot of folks just very, very worried. You add in the fact that the Broncos are doing weird things, like we're rotating in Chris Abrams' drain so that he stays in game shape, and we're putting him in on some series and giving Riley Moss some time off. Our pass rush is slowing down. It felt like we were going to run away with that record for a number of sacks in a season. And now it's like, now we have to actually average over 4 sacks a game if we want to tie the Bears record for sacks in an entire season. And so what exactly is happening in here, and how concerned are you? To me, I'm not that concerned, because I think there are a couple things that data doesn't show, and that is this time last season when this fall apart happened, you got to remember Riley Moss was injured, and so we were playing Levi Wallace, who was an absolute turnstile. And if you take a look at that game, the Cleveland Browns really skew that game the wrong way. They scored 40 or 32 points on us, and I think they had over 500 yards passing the ball. That was a real outlier. Then we were able to hold the Colts to 13, and that was with, that could have been 20 if Jonathan, what's his name? The running back, Jonathan Edwards, I want to say. It's not Jonathan. Gosh, that's going to bug me. He fumbles walking across the end zone and that could have been a 20 burger that they laid on us. But I think a couple of the big differences is this year that we have Huffanga, who is a massive upgrade at the safety position. I think having, obviously getting a healthy Patrick Surtain back, and the fact that we drafted Jahdae Barron, he's a lot better than other options we've had against a tight end in the recent past. And then I think the fact that our pass rush is deep now, and we're really truly still in line now to have a shot at breaking this record here. So all we need to do is average just right over 4 sacks per game to tie the Bears, and 4.8 to actually end up taking the lead when it comes to total sacks per game. And so I think those facts make me not quite as nervous about the Broncos defense falling off. And then I think at the same time, I think our offense is actually better than it was this time last year. That, Javonte Williams didn't look as good as RJ Harvey looked last week at any time in his entire last season with the Denver Broncos. So I think we have a running game. I think the fact that we have Troy Franklin as a second year, we obviously have Pat Bryant, who we didn't have last year. We didn't have Evan Ingram last year. So I think our offense has room to grow. And then I just truly hope that the league doesn't figure out Vance Joseph for whatever reason in come December. But let me know in the comments, how panicked are you about a Broncos fall off in the month of December, because this is truly our stretch here. We have the biggest games coming up. Again, I'm a giant Broncos optimist. I still think the Broncos win the division, and I think the Broncos are going to get the 1 seed in the AFC, but we just definitely need that defensive regression not to come as hard as it did last season. So let me know in the comments how you're feeling about that. Now, interesting here, what the NFL thinks is obviously they think our 10-game winning streak isn't that cool. They think our longest streak in the NFL right now when it comes to winning home games isn't that cool either, because the Denver Broncos are entering that game against the Packers as underdogs in that game, as 2.5-point underdogs. So if the Broncos lose by less than 2.5, we're doing better than what the NFL predicts. And I think the Broncos are going to beat the Packers. I've been looking at it. We got a great week of content and got opposing creator coming in, but here are just a couple of the reasons I think the Broncos are going to beat the Packers. Sean Payton and Bo Nix are dominant against the NFC. The only time Bo Nix has lost to an NFC's opponent his entire NFL career was that first game against the Seattle Seahawks, when truly it was, Riley Moss almost bats a pass down from Geno Smith that would have ended that game and given Bo Nix one more shot at winning that game against the Seahawks. But other than that, Bo Nix has been lights out against NFC opponents, and I think a lot of that is the familiarity that Sean Payton has, cutting his teeth and coaching all those years in the NFC. He knows all of those dudes and knows what they do well, and that's when he is in the area he's most comfortable, is scheming against teams that he's played with before. And so Bo Nix's passer rating against NFC teams, even counting that a lot of this is early in his career before he even got good, he has a 94 passer rating, 20 touchdowns, over 2,000 yards in just those 9 games. And so I think that favors us very, very well. We also know that throughout our entire history, even my first team I ever fell in love with was Super Bowl 32, when the Broncos were huge underdogs to the Packers. And we've essentially had their number since then. The Broncos have been 7-1 against the Green Bay Packers, and the one time we lost was a really close one in 2007 where we lost 19-13. And in 15 regular season meetings against the Packers, we're 13-1-1. And I remember 2 seasons ago when the Broncos, who had nothing to play for, I believe it was right after that Dolphins shellacking, beat the Packers, who were Super Bowl caliber team there with Russell Wilson, and PJ Locke ended that game. So it's a really good matchup in there. We're also seeing that Bo Nix has already climbed back into the top 15 when it comes to PFF. And we know that there was a couple weeks during the season where he was ranked number 34, which there's only 32 starting quarterbacks in the league. And so the fact that he is now starting to climb up into that, and over this last 4 games, he's been a top 10 quarterback. So he's playing a lot better. And then just the chemistry and camaraderie that this team has is on full display. They believe in each other, and I think that means more than any of the doubt that they're getting from the rest of the NFL. So let me know in the comments, how bullish are you still on the Denver Broncos this week and beyond, knowing that one of the biggest strengths of this Packers team was definitely their targeting of that Tucker, their tight end, who's out for the season. And I think it's just a really good matchup that I think we're going to stop the run. We've played way harder rushing offenses and held them to minuscule gains on us than we're going to play this week against the Packers. And then Riley Moss, are you going to be able to handle Christian Watson? Or are we going to be able to shut down Jordan Love and not let him scramble? So I feel very good about it. Denver Broncos are going to win this week. They're going to shut up all of the haters, and we've got a ton to believe in. Ooh, I had to get out of the shooting slump with a football, and I'm back.